I'm up here for a while and I'm leaving. So, I'm just interposing myself.
She's here to start trouble.
Yeah, I am. Is this your bag, Scott?
Yes, it is.
You want to step on it? I'm gonna step here with the mail.
Okay, call to order this meeting of the Joint Conceptual Workshop for May the 25th, 2023. Quick roll call. Commissioner Allen's not here yet. Commissioner Franks is out tonight, sick. Hope Jimmy feels better soon. Commissioner Harrison.
Present.
Commissioner Lindsay's present. Commissioner Orr.
Present.
Commissioner Alderman Peterson.
Here.
Present. And Commissioner Williamson.
Present.
Alderman Berger. Present.
Present.
Alderman Brown.
Present.
Alderman Potts, not yet. Alderman Baggett.
Present.
Okay. Alderman Barnhill. Alderman Blanton, not yet. Alderman Hanson. Okay. And Mayor Moore.
Present.
Okay. So we have a full agenda for tonight again, so let's pay attention to the timing. The first one is a 20-minute item. Item number 1 is discussion of development plan revision proposing the expansion of the PUD limits and the creation of 2 additional single-family lots known as the Hard Bargain PUD. So we'll go to staff presentation.
Yes, thank you, Roger. As Roger said, Hard Bargain Association is always looking to provide additional opportunities for home ownership in their neighborhoods, and this plan does propose 2 additional lots. It builds upon an existing PUD, which is approved under a previous zoning ordinance and not vested. The plan is proposing a narrow street section, which is supported by staff. However, in our first round of review, staff found that the proposal that's shown in this presentation was going to cause significant stormwater runoff concerns. So staff not only identified that problem, but also proposed a solution to the developer. It would utilize the existing alley and reclassify it as a street with a narrower street section while still allowing for fire access. The Hard Bargain design team was appreciative of staff's suggestion and will be making those changes with the next round of review. So everyone's aware, the plan that you'll see at the upcoming Planning Commission and BOMA meetings will be slightly different than the one you see today, but it's one that staff can better support. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there someone here representing the applicant?
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Matthew Pfeiffer. I'm with Civil and Environmental Consultants, and I'm here representing Hard Bargain, specifically Derek Solomon. So I will be discussing our presentation that we submitted. You can go ahead and bring it up. Okay. So first off, like I said, my name is Matthew Pfeiffer, and I'm here representing Derek Solomon. Also, we have Sydney Holt working on this project as well. And this is just a real brief rundown of a lot of the still relevant factors. This is a previous iteration, but most of the information still applies. So in this particular case, we have 9 properties of the existing Hard Bargain subdivision. We're looking to incorporate 1 additional Hard Bargain property that's located, and all of the properties are located in between Mount Hope Street and Glass Street. This is a historic African-American neighborhood, and with this development, we're looking at, potential for continued growth in affordable housing in the city of Franklin and pretty close to downtown. So we had our community meeting on April 5th. Community members expressed concerns mostly about access. They expressed concerns that fire trucks may not be able to navigate the proposed development. They were concerned about the impact of the development on a community. And mostly it was, like I said, about access. They supported providing public access, increased public access for emergency vehicles, fire access to the center of these properties, particularly via Johnson Alley. And it's not in the city's plan to really use Johnson Alley to make that a public street, which is why we were focusing on trying to get access from the south to tie into an existing alley that's there. Community members asked about extending it, but like I said, Johnson Alley is not really on the table for now. They had some concerns over the format of the community meeting because they were saying that some people might not have access to the technology, the internet, to do that. But Derek Solomon also identified that they were going to be having a community cleanup meeting where community members got an additional chance to speak with him, to speak with each other about additional concerns. And no additional concerns were brought forth to our knowledge. But the community overall supports continuing development of quality, affordable housing in the Hard Bargain area, in the neighborhood. So this was the existing site plan of the previous PUD. What they had was 5 single-family residences that are fronting onto a common grass area that is immediately adjacent to Mount Hope Street. There is an additional single-family residence on the lower left or southwest corner of this development that fronts onto the existing alley. There was, the existing alley ends in a circle with 6 off-street parking spaces off of it, both near to the houses fronting on the common space and on some permeable pavers to the east. One thing to note is that on-street parking was considered an integral part of this development, and it shows, I think it was 6 spaces on Mount Hope Street, which aren't necessarily utilized currently. It looks like it's very close to traffic. I know there are, a lot of times there's refuse containers sitting out there for pickup. That's where that happens. So I don't think many people use that parking on street. But there are also, in this PUD, there are areas dedicated to open space or stormwater control measures, my apologies. Also to point out is in the previous site plan, it was identified that there could be a potential connection to Johnson Alley. I don't believe anything was ever dedicated, but there was always the potential for that, was something that was considered. Our proposed site plan, like we said, we had considered and put together a plan to connect Mount Hope Street to Glass Street with the addition of a roadway coming up from the south, tying into the existing alley. We would have eliminated the circle in order to change some of that into green space, possibly stormwater measures. We would have the street would become a low-volume local street named Denny Denson Way for a significant member of the original Hard Bargain Foundation. This would include constructing 2 additional single-family residences with driveways immediately adjacent, most likely permeable pavers. This would...
Can you point those out to make sure we understand
Sure.
where those are?
Is there a laser pointer?
I just feel better to
You can do it. No.
do them back behind you, really, for us
Yeah.
to see. Can
Oh,
you do
sorry.
that? Yeah, that's probably better.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, I'm technically a millennial, but technology sometimes can be.
There we go.
I'm sorry.
Oh, here we go, okay. So, Well, I'm sorry, I can point to one of the ones, or would you prefer the one in the rear?
The back.
Okay, we can do that. So, as I was saying, we have the proposed local street running from Glass Street north to what used to be the existing alley, and then it would connect to Mount Hope Street. We would have 2 additional single-family residences that would front on the proposed street to be identified as Denny Denson Way, with adjacent 2 vehicle parking space drives, most likely permeable pavers. This would also include the addition of 6 additional off-street parking spaces. There'd be 4 here and 2 here. That would ease a lot of the vehicles that are currently on the existing alley, reducing the usable width. And there's just a lot of cars out there, and that would definitely improve the situation. And this would also maintain a lot of the open spaces in the development, specifically most of this area here. The existing stormwater features would be upgraded, so we wouldn't really be taking any new areas for the stormwater. And additionally, a lot of these areas would remain grass or channels, which would act as open spaces, green spaces, and so on.
While you got that up,
Oh, you want me to go back?
please. Did you run auto turn through that to make sure a fire truck could go all the way through?
Yes, we did. We had run a fire truck from Mount Hope Street and turned it in. And it was very tight at the entrance of the existing alley.
Well, Matt, I don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry, but I'd hate to keep talking about this plan, because like I said
true.
in my presentation, this is not what you're going to see. This is the plan that we found had significant stormwater concerns, so we're not having a street tied down to glass. We're having emergency access tied down to glass. The goal is to retain that cul-de-sac and allow the fire truck to go down that path you see, but on brick pavers. And we
Yes.
are running the auto turn on it to ensure that they can still get through there.
Okay.
Yes. Any other additional questions?
You've mentioned Johnson Alley a couple of times, but I don't see that anywhere in any
Sure,
of the.
sure. It's slightly outside of the limits of this plan.
Okay.
Let me actually go back one more. So if the extent of this plan were a little bit further, this area right here has been identified as a potential connection to Johnson Alley. Johnson
Okay.
Alley, if this was a map, would run approximately here.
Okay. Just curious. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So comments or questions? Anybody have comments or questions?
Chair?
Yes.
I just, 2 things. First of all, just compliments to Derek to continue to try to get additional housing options in here and yet not lose the neighborhood feel. I think he's done a really good job of that. There's been a lot of thought and a lot of discussion on this plan. And I also applaud the staff for maintaining safety, trying to find the pathway to help get this housing options in here while also keeping the neighborhood safe. So I think staff and Derek and his team have done a really great job, and I can appreciate the changes that need to be made. And so thank you for walking through that. And I believe this will be a really great addition. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Other comments or questions?
How big are the units? I don't think, if you said, I didn't catch it.
They were, it might say on the presentation, or actually, I think it says right there, maybe a little blurry, I'm not
Mr.
sure.
Mayor, I think I saw on one plan that they were about 1,100 square feet.
That
I could be
sounds-
wrong, but does that sound right?
That sounds correct. I
Okay.
don't want to give a number if I don't have it exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move along. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is the discussion of the Williamson County Growth Plan and Franklin UGB update. So, Andrew, turn it over for staff presentation.
Okay, I appreciate that. The Williamson County Growth Plan update, the wheels are in motion for that. Just recently, Eric Stuckey was appointed to serve on the coordinating committee. And see if I can go to the next slide. Just to recap, there are a few changes that we're proposing. These are kind of the highlights where the stars are located on the map. So in the West Basin, the removal of the Gentry Farm and the property directly to the north. And then down Carter's Creek Pike, the removal of Southall Farms and the properties kind of to the west down Carter's Creek Pike. And then also where the green star is the Goose Creek Basin, so that would be the addition of properties. And those are kind of the main changes. And we've talked about these over the last year or two. So in terms of the next steps, because there are some now, Eric was appointed to serve on the coordinating committee. The 6-month timeline should begin here shortly in mid-June to complete the growth plan update. And then on July 11th, this is different. This is a little bit something different. We want to bring forth a resolution to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, discuss it at a work session, basically endorsing our changes to the urban growth boundary. And then on July 27th, at the July Planning Commission meeting, a public hearing will be held related to this item. So we'll take some public input about the UGB changes. And then we are asking for the Planning Commission to make a recommendation vote on that resolution, endorsing it, recommending it to our Board of Mayor and Aldermen and to the coordinating committee. And then on August 8th, at that Board of Mayor and Aldermen voting meeting, they would actually vote on that resolution to the coordinating committee. And basically, that's just a show of our support to the coordinating committee with regards to our changes. Beyond that, I don't think we have any hard and fast dates, but this is the anticipated schedule going into the fall. In late August, the city will present our changes to the coordinating committee. In September, the coordinating committee will prepare and draft the growth plan, and it'll all start to really come together. And then they'll hold 2 public hearings. They'll make any final adjustments, and then they will vote and approve that. And then they'll send it back to all the municipalities in the county, so that we'll get it back at the city, and we'll need to ratify that at a Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting. And then more than likely in early January, all of this will get packaged up and sent to the state for their final approval. So that kind of sums up where we're heading in the immediate future and then going into the fall. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Comments or questions? Anybody?
Yeah, I got one. So what was the significance of removing the South Hall Farms properties to the west?
It's just kind of a large tract of acreage, so that's why I pointed it out.
They've also done a lot of development out there already, right?
Yes, ma'am.
On
Yes,
one side of
ma'am.
the road, for sure.
Yeah, it's about 300 acres.
I think availability of sewer also potential to ever serve that area. When there's something in that regard.
That was a major driver for the removal.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Andrew. Item number 3, presentation of the results of the March 22nd, 2023 Envision Franklin Open House held at Columbia State. So, staff presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so this is the feedback from our open house back in March. we started out with just asking about the vision of Franklin. Do we think that this is still capturing what we want to be? And overwhelmingly, yes, our vision statement did very well at this meeting as well as in our survey, which I'll talk about next. So that's always nice to hear. And then for the guiding principles, the general themes of the comments made on this board was the agreement with our current principle and heavy emphasis on protecting natural beauty and creating walkability especially, and suggestions for more specific language about housing accessibility. And then along with our guiding principles, we have key planning considerations. And so we just asked more open-endedly at this workshop about what planning considerations we think Franklin is facing today. And so here is the breakdown of comments by category. So we had the most comments about housing, transportation, and nature conservation. And for housing specifically, most of the comments were about cost of housing, the stock that we currently have, the diversity, and then for transportation, the most specific comments were about walkability and traffic. And then the rest were the summaries of other comments. So, and then next we have the existing or memorable destinations in Franklin.
This was one of our Post-it note boards. And these are the results in bar chart format. So Hollinsdale Park and other city parks, Pinkerton and Bicentennial received the most comments. Downtown and Main Street received the second most, and the Harpeth River and protecting the Harpeth or utilizing the river for a river walk received 8 mentions. Civil War sites, historic sites, and the historic Hard Bargain neighborhood received 8 comments as well. Where should community character be preserved and where should it be enhanced? This was a board with different colored push pins. Orange and red represented areas to preserve character. The area with the most pins is the Roper's Knob and the Franklin Road McHatcher corridor. West Main Street and Main Street also received 10 pins. The blue and the purple pins represent areas to be enhanced. Murfreesboro Road and Royal Oaks area received the most pins, followed by the Columbia Avenue corridor and the Liberty Pike Franklin Road corridors. We also had a board to place sticky notes for community character, areas to be preserved or enhanced. And these are the results for areas to be preserved. Historic neighborhoods, buildings, and Civil War sites received 17 sticky note comments. Some of the areas specifically mentioned were Natchez, Hard Bargain, Main Street, Masonic Hall, and the Silos. Open spaces, green spaces, and hilltops received 10 comments, with Roper's Knob and Bicentennial Park mentioned. Gateways, scenic corridors, and rural areas received 8 comments. And then we have the areas to be enhanced. Walkability, connectivity, and Riverwalk received the most with 12. The gateways into downtown from 96 Franklin Road, Murfreesboro Road, and Columbia received 8. And then the historic sites also received 8. What type of open spaces would you like to see in residential development? Gateways and natural areas were the 2 most liked. And then this is also showing that information in bar chart form, where greenways received 66 dots, natural areas received 56, and then plaza came in third with 38. Where are the gaps in pedestrian and bicycle connectivity? And these are the results. Lewisburg Pike had the most requests for a sidewalk. There is a capital improvement project to eventually have a sidewalk that runs from about 208 Lewisburg to Eastern Flank and then continuing on to McHatcher, and that will be built in 3 phases. Carruthers Parkway also received a good amount of sidewalk requests connecting from neighborhoods to Carruthers. Franklin Road had several mentions as well to connect Gateway Village to downtown. And then the Riverwalk had 5 comments to continue the trail from Bicentennial to Pinkerton Park. Lewisburg Pike.
And then for Lewisburg Pike, this is where we were asking about our gateways into town, our areas that aren't as developed, and seeing what people wanted to see in the future. So for Lewisburg Pike, the most obvious answer that jumped out was to leave it as open space or leave it as is, and to promote walkability. So people are really hoping to see this land stay open and stay scenic.
So similar to Lewisburg Pike, we asked what type of uses you'd like to see just generally in the West Basin or in the West Harpeth area. As you can see the breakdown here, again, the vast majority of folks were interested in just seeing open space, farmland, or conservation in that area, and then again, heavily interested in walkability, creating more walkways, paths, and trails throughout that open space. And then again, the concept of agrihood has been very popular lately, so utilizing that open space and farmland with some housing options. So we asked the same question of what you'd like to see along Franklin Road. The overwhelming majority, again, said public access, parks, trails, and open space, really emphasizing the gateway corridor into downtown, and then conservation and conservation subdivision rounded out the top three. We had some people saying no changes south of MacHatcher, which would similarly have sort of that gateway corridor emphasis. So if you want to loop those in, that's fine too. So the vast majority are just having, ample opportunity to have green space within town. We asked again what people would like to see in the Maze Creek Basin. Fewer responses on this one, but the vast majority referred to low density. And then the rest were all pretty much at the same level with, having green space, mixed residential with green space, Serenbe type hamlets. As you're familiar, has a lot of green space, conservation subdivision, again, green space, and then mixed residential. So we did have a couple boards asking how building height should transition away from I-65. Currently, Envision Franklin does have building height limits away from I-65, and so we were looking to see if the opinion on these heights have changed, and just trying to get some feedback on those. You'll see a chart that's a little bit more complicated than the other ones you've seen so far. So the red lines represent how many comments we received that were negative about that building height maximum. So you'll see that we received 8 comments that were negative about a 12-story building height, whereas we received 5 comments that were positive about a 12-story building height. So if you break this down to really just what this data means, as soon as you get above 10 stories, most of the comments regarding that height maximum were negative. So basically, it is a lot more palatable for citizens to have buildings under 10 stories. A lot of people were very positive about 6-story building height being the maximum. One of the major comments of this Envision Franklin update is housing and the missing middle. So we did ask people what their opinions were about missing middle and the different housing types that are shown on these boards. I broke down the comments here. And as you can see, rather than going into all the comments, it seems that there is an interest in different housing types besides just multifamily and single family. So this was really encouraging for the work that we're doing in investigating these different housing options as we go forward with Envision Franklin and for the future of the city of Franklin. We also asked how much and what type of housing would be appropriate in regional commerce. This is one of our design concepts that's really focused around the I-65 corridor. And the comments are broken down here anything with a times, however many afterwards is how many comments of that type were provided. So the highest number of comments were related to townhomes being in the regional commerce, followed by live-work units, retail on the first floor, living on the second floor, so mixed-use developments, and then just more options of different housing types as well.
All right, and then we had our big map, of course, at our meeting, and people were able to leave Post-its wherever on the map to leave specific comments about those areas. And we grouped them by location, and the highest number was just one-off locations, but the three top most commented areas were downtown, Murfreesboro Road, and the Factory District. And the general summary of comments for downtown were to preserve the silos and thoughts on the new city hall. In Murfreesboro Road, people are wanting to improve the character, clean up the area, have more traffic control, and their thoughts on development in the area. And then for Factory District, again, traffic control, improving walkability, more green space, and then being a possible home for Graceworks were among the comments left on our big map.
In the factory.
And then lastly, people were able to write open-ended comment cards. We had about less than 30 of these, and so our three main categories were about housing affordability, development, and transportation. And then each one of those has summaries of the comments being made. So for housing affordability, the missing middle, or not being able to have adult children move back. For development, keeping the character of Franklin is super important and comes up a lot, but also striving for architectural diversity. Transportation, people are just really into walkability and multi-use trails and being able to traverse Franklin by more than just one way. And then our next steps. So our full results, this is just a summary of what the people were saying, and we have our full results with all the comments listed on the website. We are having a special joint conceptual workshop with you all in June to talk about housing strategies, transfer development rights in the Factory District, and then we will be having our second Factory District meeting on June 26th, again at Liberty Hall in the Factory, where we'll be presenting actual drafts of what the Factory District design concept could look like, and we'll be able to have everyone comment and revise from there.
We're happy to answer any questions or go back to any of the slides if we need to clarify. Or if not, then we can.
Alderman Brown.
Thank you for that. I'll make one comment now and may come back, but I'll just say again, I'm glad to see that TDRs are in our discussion for our conceptual workshop we're going to do, but I'll restate, I would still love to see a conversation. I mean, clearly, if you take this along with the citizen survey, clearly there's a lot of growth fatigue. I'm seeing a lot of preserved land, a lot of preserved open space. I'd still love to have a conversation at one of our neighborhood community meetings about how does the public view us attaining that? How do they feel about capital expense or TDRs or taxes? Because at the end of the day, if we want to preserve, which I'm all for it, it's going to have to come at a cost somewhere. So I would still love to have that discussion as part of this update so that we actually have some actionable ideas about how we would actually accomplish the goal of preserving rural character.
I probably like some thoughts about the low density on 96 East. It's going to be a 4-lane road. And one of the challenges in that area is getting sewer, and low density is never going to get sewer to it.
And you're talking extend it out 96 East beyond the area beyond the area that's 4-laned already, the areas where, yeah.
And it's going to eventually all be 4-lane all the way to Murfreesboro.
Right.
I think they're doing the right-of-way for the
Yeah.
next phase currently. To
say
me,
right
that's
away
a
all the
big
way out
opportunity.
to Murfreesboro? You say right away for 4 lanes all the way out to Murfreesboro?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're getting it now.
Roger, one thing that we never cover is all of these great ideas don't necessarily translate to who is directly being affected, the property owner, whatever. I mean, I think all of us want to see pretty much the same thing. But if the person is out there that's got his piece of property, that he needs to do something with it, he's owned it for 100 years, 50, 75, whatever he's owned, I doubt very seriously if he's in here. So I'm just saying, when you do, sort of piggybacking on the Alderman Brown's comments, we need to make sure that we've got some way that makes it palatable for those property owners to be somewhat satisfied. They may not ever be satisfied, but to be somewhat satisfied on where we're going with the right-of-ways, the connectivity, and because, I mean, if you just use the word connectivity, we'll do too good of a job of connectivity anyway. Because every time we go to get connectivity, we pull it out of the development. So it's back on a main road whenever it's connectivity from our projects, such as a lot of them come up. But I'd just like to see something that, that a property owner could look at and say, you know what? TDR, transferable development rights, they've been around for a long time.
We tried to.
Because we discussed them and went to Montgomery County, Maryland, years ago. I even with their TDRs, I would not want to live in Montgomery County, Maryland, okay? But keep that in mind when we're doing what we're doing.
And I don't know how you get rid of some of the prejudice that occurs. I mean, it sounds good to say, well, I want everything to be green. I want trails everywhere. And that's not necessarily smart growth for a city to, I think you need to consider that with a little bit of jaundiced eye. I mean, we're asking the public, what do you think? Well, I want everything to be green. I want parks everywhere, no traffic, but we want housing. So some of the aspirations, I think, may not be attainable.
Yes, Alderman Carter.
Yeah, when they was looking up there at that one part, they said more green space along Franklin Road. I'm like, wait a minute, don't we already have 80 some acres of green space right there at the factory on Franklin Road called a park in Harlowsdale Farm? I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's a lot of green space on Franklin Road. Just curious, I agree with the mayor though. When we look at 96, here's the rub. So on 96 East, you've got this new 4-lane highway, and numerous landowners out there looking at pursuing annexation, and numerous landowners who've come in to talk about, I've talked to a couple of them already, and we have a couple that have larger plots of land out there. But they're looking at what the future looks like for their land or whatever. I think the key along that, and it's going to be all the way to Triune, and then all the way, as the mayor said, to Murfreesboro, and they're getting the right of way for that now. I've been trying to stay on top of this because it affects my ward. I would say that one of the discussions that we had a while back was, how do you allow development to go along 96 East and yet try to reserve and preserve rural character? Well, the kind of developments that you choose to do, agro developments, different developments that, but we'll never get that and never obtain what we need out there until we do a regional plan for that area. We really have to concentrate, and we're missing the boat because we got a 4-lane highway, 5-lane highway coming in there right now, and they're pursuing right away for that right now to go all the way to Triune and on. So I don't think that's wise for us to put that off. But back to this whole thing, this discussion here is that I think it is the key of how far back off of 96 you go, and where will sewer be able to actually go in the future. I mean, it's going to be costly, but people are going to pursue that. There's not just one or two landowners out there right now. There are multiple landowners looking at this, and they're looking down the road. We're not looking right here. We're looking way down the road. We're looking what happens in 20 years and 25 years from now. How does that whole area look? We need a plan. We need a plan. And then how far back off of 96 do you intrude on that area? How far north, how far south do you go in that area? Well, there should be a stoppage point, because that as you get back out, then you reserve and preserve some of that rural character. And I think as you go along 96, one of the keys is that, and people talk about this, preserving a rural character. So how does that look? You can do development. It's all in design and how it's laid out too. So I think these are things that we as a board and as a planning commission should be discussing for that future area. And I just wanted to make those points.
And I
Thank
think
you.
one of the things we saw in some of our previous evaluations of out 96 East was once you get off some distance off of 96,
Right.
either east or west, or north or
Yeah.
south, then you get into areas where
Yep.
there are existing low-density developments, people that.
Oh, lots of it.
I like to live in the county, I don't
Lots
want to
of
be
it.
in the city, and those kinds of things, so.
Yeah, if you go south off of 96,
Right.
you have a ton of development out there in
Right.
the county. And they talk about, well, we don't want to develop out there. Well, excuse me, but it's already been developed. A lot of that down south of there. So I just want to make those points because I think it's well worth our time to pursue that regional plan as well. Thank you, Roger.
Certainly. Other comments? Oh.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing here, takeaway is,
How do you see
and I
that?
agree, it's hard to do,
That whole
have your
plan,
cake and
that
eat it too,
Sorry.
on some of this stuff, but it points back to something I've been saying for a while, which is, this is a conservation subdivision opportunity in Envision Franklin. We've got, and tweaking that can give people the open space, the perfecting or more perfecting, making more perfect conservation subdivision and and using that character area as the tool to deliver is how you will get more rural character development. And Creekside's a good example of how, I think that was what it was originally intended to do, but then we see how that plays out in reality on a larger scale piece of land like that. So I think further refining that and being intentional on conservation subdivision, and you can hit a lot of what the public is saying and make it better, because most of our greenfields are in conservation subdivision. So I think that's imperative. It reinforces what we've been saying, which is you want to deliver on a lot of this, you get that right. Also, I love that people still are passionate about Civil War sites and preserving open space, and we deserve to deliver for them on some of that stuff. That's more of a BOMA conversation than it is Planning Commission, but we deserve, our citizens deserve that we take that into account as we look at new opportunities, and there are a variety of them that will probably come up, but it's clear what the community wants. It's the hard part is getting it done, but conservation subdivision, I think, is the big takeaway for me here is getting that right.
Right.
I will note that conservation subdivision is one of the topics of our special joint workshop next month. So staff has been working on it, and we will bring some items to you to discuss and get feedback on.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Alderman Hanson? Any other comments or questions? We've got time to talk now, so.
Is that it?
No, we got one more.
Oh, the survey. No.
I mean, the next one's gonna kind of blend in with this one. I'd recommend we go on because we have more opportunity to compare the two.
Yep. I attended one of the meetings at the Columbia State and was really impressed with the number of people from the public that attended those meetings and the level of input that we got that night, those two nights in a row, I think 2 consecutive nights, so. Good, okay. All right. Item number 4 is a presentation of the results of the Envision Franklin survey results. So, Teresa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More bar charts. All right, so our citizen survey finished about a month ago, and we had over 1,000 responses, which was really amazing. People are really engaged, which is very fun. So we first just asked them to how familiar they were with Envision Franklin. Are people even aware that we have this plan? And mostly people have at least heard of it, which is good to hear. But of course, 25% had never heard of Envision Franklin before this survey. And then again, with the vision statement of Envision Franklin, 85% of the respondents answered that they still agree with the current vision of Envision Franklin. And so then 168 people did comment about what they would want to see changed if they could. And the number one thing was that they just wanted stricter enforcement. So that, again, that reaffirms that our vision statement is what Franklin is interested in. And then they just had specific wording suggestions and talking about growth and character. And so then our next questions were about the key planning issues. And for this, we asked people on a scale of 1 to 100 how important these were to them. And if you can see that 12 out of 13 of these are at least important, if not very important, to the respondents still. And then the last one was about vacancy rates for office space, which I don't blame anyone for not being super passionate. So this is the more open-ended part of that question. Are there any other planning considerations facing Franklin that you would like to see addressed in our update? And the top three responses were about infrastructure, housing affordability, and specific zoning changes. But again, this is only 409 people out of the over 1,000 taking it. So next, we're talking about our guiding principles, and here we let people, for each one, designate whether or not they agreed with it and leave a comment on what they would like to see changed for each specific guiding principle. We're not going to go through every single one tonight, but that presentation is available on the website. But if you can see here, most of the people agreed to vote all of our guiding principles to keep as is. 80% is a pretty high number to be our lowest. And then the top three were natural beauty, historic preservation, and exceptional design, which again is the theme we see a lot with the nature conservation, historic preservation, and character or design. And then, do you think anything is missing from the guiding principles? Most people agreed no, that there's not anything missing, but 31% of people said yes, that there was something missing. And the top categories were housing affordability, to slow or stop growth, and nature conservation again. And then stricter enforcement of principles. So again, an affirmation that our principles are current to what Franklin's needs are. And then we asked some questions specifically about housing. So this is the importance of elements to creating a vibrant neighborhood. Easy access to parks and open spaces, again, is our number one. Distinctive character and walkability, so similar themes to what we've been seeing. And then as far as other elements that create a vibrant neighborhood, the most comments were specifically about zoning changes they wanted to see, and then walkability, affordability, and conservation. So this is a question that came straight from our housing consultant and yielded a lot of comments and results that were very good to read through. So I'll read it out loud. People seek different housing options depending on household size, stage of life, job, school locations, transportation needs, budget, convenience, quality of life, and more. Do you think that the new residential developments in Franklin are providing enough housing variety for the range of ages, incomes, and family sizes that want to live in Franklin? So most people, it was close, but most people did vote no. And the biggest comment section by far was about housing affordability. And then next was variety, and next was that the free market should be running. So that was definitely our biggest comment section. And then next we were asking about our process so far. So did you attend our Factory District Community Workshop or the open house meetings in March? And most people voted no, which means that this was exciting for us because we got more answers from people who maybe can't make it out to an actual public meeting. So that was encouraging to see. And then the satisfaction was neutral to satisfied with the process so far in the meetings that they had attended. So this was the 238 people that had taken the survey and been to a meeting. And then how can the city of Franklin improve future public outreach efforts? The biggest thing was just more advertising. And so in that vein, in a month from today, we will be having our next meeting and the factory district again, like we spoke about. But we will continue to do more public outreach and just try to reach as many of our residents as possible. So yes, more people wanted more advertising, continuing on as we are doing, and then just more online presence. And then just any other considerations, the last catch-all question to see what people are thinking and what is on the minds of people. And again, character of Franklin is the most important in this question, zoning specificities, and then nature conservation and stricter enforcement. So similar patterns to what we've been seeing. And then our summary, the survey captured a population mostly outside of those who came to in-person meetings. 85% of respondents agree with our current vision statement. Our guiding principles all received at least 80% of respondents' approval, and almost 70% of respondents do not believe anything is missing from the current list. So staff will make some refinements, but overall, we're in good shape with the guiding principles we have. And then 12 out of 13 key planning issues were still ranked as important to respondents. Infrastructure and housing affordability ranked high for write-ins, so mostly about our street infrastructure and then housing affordability. So these survey results will be used to help us shape our updates. We're writing drafts of our new guiding principles currently, and we will have improved advertising efforts for future meetings to, of course, grab as many people as we can. Any questions are welcome.
What's the advertising plan?
So we do a lot of different things. We have our social media posted. We have signage outside of the Franklin or the factory for most of this. Last time we were able to get on the radio. We'll see if we'll be able to squeeze that in this time. But yeah, social media is definitely where we get our most engagement. And then we have a distribution list as well, which we will be advertising for the next month as well to sign up for that, where I send out emails periodically with any updates and future meetings so people can plan.
Other questions or comments? Alderman Barnhill.
I would be interested in how you're going to resolve the housing affordability.
Me too.
I don't think I would have put that on there as an option.
We'll give her 30 days, is what you're thinking, right?
I'll get it, don't worry.
Give her a postponement. Let's defer.
Yeah. Okay. That's an enormous amount of information. I appreciate the effort that went into that.
Thank you.
Okay. It's a rare day where we have lots of time to talk. So, any other comments or questions or thoughts or suggestions?
There seem to be some pretty common themes to both of these.
I think there is.
Yeah.
Just a reminder to everyone that these presentations were summaries of the information. If you want to see all the comments and all of the information for both presentations from the open house and the survey, they are available on the project webpage, which is www.franklintn.gov/Envision Franklin Update.
Envision Franklin update. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, it's, I'm going to declare us closed, adjourned then. So, any other comments or questions?